Welcome to the Strive for Legacy podcast. I'm here with my guy Rose, and we are actually here in the playoffs. We have playoff basketball games to talk about, and it feels amazing. What about you, Rose? How you feeling now?
I'm feeling after yesterday, but while we're recording this, I'm not down, but the fact that the other games have been so good is definitely a picker upper. So
Mm-hmm.
we're striving through the pain, I guess.
Yeah, and I will definitely have some reasons as to why that game was not as bad as Lakers fans might feel after, initially going through the pain of losing in what was ultimately a close game, losing by just 9 points. There are some bright sides there, but we'll get to that later on in the episode. I kind of want to just start with a recap of the play-in games first, because we didn't really do an episode discussing that quite yet. I just want to kind of express our thoughts on that. Overall, how were the play-in games? What did you think of keeping the play-in around? I'll let you go first because I set the question up.
All right, throw me the oop, I guess. I'm a big fan of it. I think something that isn't talked about enough. Like people just think the play-in game. I say people in like as a generalization, but some people would like to say that they just look at the play-in tournament, like just the play-in tournament, but they don't look at the effects before, and we'll see the effects after once teams like the teams that made it at the 7 and 8 seed. We'll see what those effects are like, but I mean it's looking like the Grizzlies are looking good, but I think something that's super underrated and Adam Silver and the league is really seeing the value. I mean, they saw the value in the ratings, and a lot of people like to, harp on about the NBA ratings, this and that. Well, the ratings were super good. I believe the something in the 5 to 6 million. I might be wrong, but it was super good ratings for the Lakers and the Warriors. And we did have we did have like an emergency podcast about that, which you should definitely check out, even though it's a little outdated. But it is definitely it's good for views, and like a lot of people think the NBA, I don't know why I'm just generalizing, but it is a business, and you want to have a good business, and if you look at something and it's giving you good income and it's giving you good views, then the NBA is most certainly going to take advantage of that. And they, like I was mentioning earlier, they want to make a mid-season tournament. I am definitely gonna have to like consider that a way more than a play-in
Yeah, we can
tournament,
talk about the mid-season tournament a bit later too.
because the money is certainly there, but the motivation on both sides seems a little off for that, because the play-in tournament, you're like what I'm trying to say is before the play-in tournament, there's at least 10 to 15 games where teams like the Wizards, do you think if I'll pose you this question, I guess, do you think that if the play-in tournament did not exist, the Wizards would even be in the playoffs right now because they were so motivated to get into the playoffs?
Yeah, you know me, I am a huge Russell Westbrook fan, so I closely have been watching the Wizards season, and things were looking really bleak. And if there was no play-in tournament, I think with the injuries that the Wizards had, Russell Westbrook was playing with a quad injury to start the year. Beal was playing through Knicks and Knacks. They might have just kind of shut it down and let it become the Denny Avdia and Rui Hachimura development show. So I think the play-in was amazing from that standpoint, and I'm in total agreement in on as far as like keeping the play-in around, because people will focus on the actual play-in tournament. And granted, the games in the Eastern Conference weren't all that interesting this year, but the play-in will be like that any given year. Like, it's not going to be as exciting as Lakers Warriors every single
Yeah.
year, but I don't think that's a reason to scrap it, because there was so much excitement leading into the end of the regular season. And like you said, like last like 10ish games, like everybody's checking standings to see how this game tonight affects things, like where teams will land, and the tiers that the playoffs now have are just a lot more fascinating because of the play-in. And it'll just kind of be sad to see the NBA, if they would get rid of it, just because in a single year it didn't give them the matchup that they wanted. Like, any given year, the playoffs could be kind of mid or boring because the number one seed Mavericks got knocked off by a eight seed. Like things like that could always happen anyway in the playoffs. We can get boring matchups at times. Injuries strike at the wrong time. At the end of the day, it makes the regular season more interesting. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it makes, like I said, 10 to 15 games is more than enough because at this point, last year there wasn't even like any basketball to be seen on TV, and before that, it's been so long ago where like we recognize how poor the state of like the NBA was in terms of keeping engagement at the April right before the playoffs. I think right before the playoffs, like literally just right before, there were some matchups where it was like they're fighting for the 8 seed to get into the playoffs. But that was towards literally the end of the regular season. There's a period between the All-Star break, like the latter half of the All-Star, after the All-Star break and into the playoffs, where it's pretty much dead. And the NBA saw that was a big issue. And like I said, they're a well-run organization, well-run business, and they identified something that was good. And I mean, the overreactions are there. You saw after the Warriors and Lakers game, as soon as the Warriors lost, there's the overreaction on both sides. But I think one thing though, not maybe because we are Lakers fans and it was way too much stress on us. I don't know about the 7th seed being included. I don't know. What are your thoughts on? Because I liked how it was last year where it was 8, 9, and 10. But I understand for business-wise why the 7 would be included. And I don't think teams... I can say with a lot of bravery, I guess, that the Lakers wouldn't... A team like the Lakers wouldn't normally be a 7 seed. I don't know. What's your opinion about the 7 seed, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the complaints about the 7th seed being involved, and I'm honestly not all that sympathetic to the argument because, you're still a 7th seed. We're not talking about an elite team. And, just because of how deep and good the Western Conference is, any given year, sometimes there is a pretty good team at that 7th seed, but you're not a home court advantage playoff team. Yeah, I don't think, I don't know why anything should be promised to you. You're in the bottom 4. Why not? I mean, making the play-in just for 8. I think that could be fun. We saw it last year in the bubble, but I don't see why the 7th seed is so sacred that everyone just kind of wants it off the table as if it's so separate from the 8th seed. I think there's a couple games difference between those two sometimes. At the end of the day, they're usually teams that lose in the first round anyway, so why not make them up for grabs if we can make the play-in more interesting?
Yeah, I see your argument because this year the Lakers were only 3 games above the Warriors, and in the East, I believe the Celtics were up 2 games from the Wizards. It might just be a recency bias because that was just a whole stressful event, and I do understand. So I'm certainly not like super extreme about the 7th seed. I'm not gonna die on a hill for the 7th seed. It might just be something that I liked more, but I really don't think the NBA is going to reduce the play-in tournament just for a 7 seed. Most certainly not.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I could take it or leave it if they include the 7th seed or don't. But I just kind of don't see why people were making the argument as if the 7th seed is so special and as if we've seen so many upsets from the 7 and 2 spot anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think, I've said this on a separate podcast, but I think something that is a little bad about this year's play-in is just that it just sets such a high expectation. And, I mean, so far the playoffs, we'll get into that a little bit, but boy, has the bar been set quite high, most certainly. And I don't know if, for like some fans, it just seems as if the bar of a Lakers and Warriors type game won't be met again for who knows how long. And I'm just glad that, we got to experience it, and, it really won't be that serious. It was like a finals game pretty much in terms of viewership. And so I don't think in the future a 7 and 8 seed is going to get that type of thing. But, I mean, it was still fun regardless.
Yeah, it was a fun inaugural play-in. I don't think we will see one that is that interesting or gets ratings that high. Just, there was the LeBron versus Steph draw to it, and I doubt the play-in games and other series were all that great as far as ratings, because I'm sure that's why we only heard about the ratings for that one Warriors Lakers games.
Yeah.
All the games that the Warriors played were actually pretty fun and interesting. Um, I think the matchups will still be kind of good. There are still teams like the Pelicans that could have been in there with a Zion playing matchup at some point. We saw how electrifying Ja was. There's some really nice young talent that could be making their way to the play-in, and I think that's one way that NBA casual fans can really start to learn who some of the best young talent is in the league. If we're having play-in matches where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's going up against Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. to try and like sneak into playoff matchups, just kind of get the casuals ready for the next
Next wave.
stage
Yeah,
of
the next wave.
who the wave of NBA superstars are going to be.
Yeah, I most certainly agree. Do you want to get into a quick little recap of the games so far? We are in day 3 of the playoffs.
Yeah.
We don't have
So
to talk
we've
about every
had
game, but something that stands
yeah
out for every game and here and there.
yeah. So we've had every single game one be played to this point. I'm sure we can probably just start with the ones that have been most interesting. So we can probably just like popcorn on this, and I'll start with which series has been fascinating for me. I got to start with the Milwaukee versus Miami series.
Mm-hmm.
In the East, Milwaukee has a 1-0 lead.
Yeah.
They're the 3 seed. Miami's the 6, and that was a really fun game one. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo had really bad games,
Yeah.
and Giannis had a mixed game as well. He obviously put up huge numbers, and that's what he does. But I think he was a bit hesitant. The free throws definitely were not falling. It was a bit back and forth. Close game down the stretch. Did that one go to overtime? I don't remember if it went to
I
overtime.
believe it did. Don't.
Yeah, I
know.
think Jimmy
it did,
Butler
it did,
might have
it did.
forced that to overtime.
Yeah, sleeve
Yeah,
Giannis. Sleeve
that-
Giannis was quite. I don't know how many times he's. I know early in his career he put a sleeve, but seeing Giannis with a sleeve kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah. I hope he's okay for game 2. I'm glad Milwaukee kind of took this one. I think they really needed it. If they had ended up losing this game, I think it would have been bad for morale.
Yeah.
Given how the series turned out for them last year, I think their fans obviously really wanted this matchup to try and prove some things that last year wasn't the real team, and now that they have Drew Holiday, that they're a real finals contender, and they are definitely going to have to keep proving things because it doesn't get any easier from here for them. They have a bunch of games with Miami still left to play,
If they beat
and
them,
in their bracket,
they-
in their bracket, they would then have to face potentially
The Nets.
Brooklyn and then Philly in the finals.
That's 3 contenders. You have to face 4 contenders. It's like playing 4
Yeah.
final series straight.
Yeah, the Bucks would have a pretty difficult path to get out of the East, and that's why I'm going to be paying attention to a lot of their games, because this will say a lot about the team, and Giannis is a superstar. This is kind of where his legacy can really be made here.
It's where greats become legends.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about you? What playoff matches has really got your attention right now?
All of them have been great. I don't even think it's even arguable. I think the Nets and the Celtics was certainly the most boring one.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like the talent just isn't there. Jason Tatum is probably gonna go off, but the supporting members are just they're not. I wish Jaylen Brown just didn't get injured, because then it would just be competitive and fun at the same time. But I think one that stood out the most, man, it's hard to choose, but I did like the Mavericks and the Clippers one, but that's not my favorite one. I liked how I liked the Maxi Kleber moment where all 3 players yelled at him, and then like not even half
That
an
was a
hour
great
later they
moment.
were walking down with like their heads down. So I found that very hilarious. But I think maybe recency bias, but the Hawks and the Knicks game was as wild
Mm.
as it gets, and it's not like a. It most certainly was not a beautiful ending. There was a lot of like turnovers. Danilo Gallinari has the wildest haircut I've seen, and it was just a bunch of wild in the mecca of basketball. And it's been, geez, 8 years, something like that, since the Knicks had a playoff
Mm-hmm.
game. And 8 years, you tend to forget. 8 years is a long time. You tend to forget how good of a place Madison Square Garden is for playoffs games. And personally, like, I'm gonna go on a hot take ramble here, but like a lot of people, I think 99.999% of people dislike how Trae Young plays the game. But I
Mm-hmm.
like the whole foul baiting thing. I think I stand alone in this, but I find that super entertaining. I just do, and I think Trae Young, he gets like he can do everything right and still get memed, and that's completely fine. But he, I've always had him on my list of favorite players, and I think he had his for his playoff debut. He started off with probably the best game you could have. I mean, he had the game
Yeah.
winner on a floater, and then his quotes afterward. You could say he was a little overkill about it, but it's your first game. You can say whatever you want. If it helps the confidence, I don't blame you. But if you have been living under a rock, the Knicks fans were basically being Knicks fans, and Spike Lee and all of that. I mean, Spike Lee has witnessed a lot. He's been through a lot in Madison Square
Yeah.
Garden, but he was just, I can't say the words, but he was like, where was that energy after I hit the shot, in a sarcastic tone, and I really like
Oh
that.
yeah, I loved it. I
Yeah,
loved it.
I think
Yeah.
Kenny said this, but having more villains in the game is certainly it goes under the radar for how good it is for the league. And I think the Hawks and the Knicks, to copy Kenny too, I think that could be a potential rivalry somewhat in the playoffs, and I'm super pumped about that. I think that's one of the more guaranteed 7 game series, and hopefully Julius Randle, Kentucky guy, can can certainly do better than last game. And yeah, that was just my favorite, mostly because of the environment and how it ended and how crazy it was. The most playoffs game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'm actually glad that you brought this series up because I want to go and recommend that anyone listening to this go out and find some Knicks fans on Twitter and follow them. And go out and find some Hawks fans on Twitter and then follow them as well because they have been going at each other about this series and it has been hilarious. Honestly, for me, this series was kind of a coin flip. I know the Knicks won all of the regular season matchups, but the Hawks had various degrees of health in all of those, and we've never really seen what a full healthy Hawks team looks like. I wanted to kind of see what the offense for the team would be, and Trae Young had a phenomenal game one. And the way that Knicks fans were really antagonizing him and going at him to start and all the chants, the fact that he shut them all up, I was totally here for him talking his talk at the end of that game because just watching it hits them with the floater and then it really just sucks the air out of the building
Yeah,
and then he gets right into the trash talk. Like I love it. Like if we can get a rivalry like this, like Trae Young will be the new Reggie Miller to Knicks fans. He will be the our generation's Reggie Miller of antagonizing Knicks fans. This matchup is a lot more interesting than I expected it to be. I'm glad you brought it up.
yeah, and I think even the Hawks arena is nice. It's obviously not MSG, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just it's not star it's not star driven. I think the best player maybe on both courts. I mean, Randall isn't helping himself, but as Trae Young being your biggest star out of both teams, it's not up there with it. It's certainly not with the series right now, but it's an overall team playoff. It's not star versus star. It's not marquee matchup versus marquee matchup. There are some good matchups, but it's what a good playoff series have, and that's just you bring 5 players on the court and you bring 5 other players on the court and you just battle it out. And I think those are some of the most underrated and best playoff series. It's just a formula for just good playoffs, I guess.
Yeah, I will also put it out there that I'm low key rooting for the Hawks. I would love to see my guy Nate McMillan get out of the first round.
I
I think
am too.
Indiana did him so bogus by letting him go. So I'm rooting for him to make it out the first round and throw salt in their wounds as they consider firing their coach that they replaced him with.
Yeah. I mean, I understood why the Pacers fired him, just because they had such a high standard, but I was like, where did this high standard even come from? But, I mean, it's kind of crazy,
No,
too. Like, the Hawks are like, they don't seem fully committed. I mean, it is the playoffs, but if Nate McMillan doesn't get re-signed, then something is wrong, because the Hawks team was a couple of games below 500. They did not start off. Trae Young did not start off well after like 5 games, and to see them get a 5 seed, you can say blah blah this the East and that. I mean, the Hawks hadn't made the playoffs in a while, and usually teams that don't make the playoffs in a while, they get a lower that you'd expect the Hawks to be in like the play-in game, but they exceeded my expectations. I had them at like the 7 to 8, but they got the 5, and they're in a great series. They're not in a series where you're expecting like a sweep or anything. This is going to be a 7-game series, and I think, just not to ramble more on this series, I think it's great to just for all the players involved to get their shine, because it's been a while since, especially for both franchises, just to get some national media attention. I think that's great for both, because Atlanta and New York, major markets. I think that's just great for everyone involved.
yeah, and I'm gonna say if Nate McMillan does not get re-signed there, Orlando, Sacramento, and maybe even New Orleans all need to fire their coach and try and get Nate McMillan over there to run their organizations.
Yeah.
Actually, let me include Washington in that as well, because the Wizards also need a coaching team. I mean, matter of fact, lump Portland in there. We could see a lot of coaching turnover this offseason.
Yeah, you say Sacramento, and I'm like, they seem very, very in love with Luke Walton,
Yeah,
former Laker.
yeah, I've seen the reports that they don't want to quite let go of him for some reason. I think it might just be contractual stuff because he has another year on the deal. I honestly hope that's what it is. I think that needs to end. But we're talking about the playoffs. There's no reason to be mentioning the Kings in this podcast. So let's move on and talk about the Memphis versus Utah matchup. That was last night. That game was exhilarating.
It was.
Ja Morant going off. I think he had a really good game. Was very big for the Grizzlies down the stretch. Dylan Brooks also very good game for them. Kyle Anderson, they have a deep team. Jonas Valanciunas proving that Rudy Gobert certainly is not the best defensive player in the league.
Oh wait, before I just cut you off, you saw his flop, right?
Yeah,
it was off the bench too. Like, if he got a tech, cool,
stuff.
But like the whole arms up. At least make it like you got to master the flop. You got to make it like look at some LeBron tape and just analyze it.
Get back to us, yeah. The Lakers do everything better is our point here.
Yes, and if you're gonna go that far to try and get a tech and not get it, then it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, because you then literally just made an embarrassment of yourself and given the league footage to review to potentially fine you for flopping because
yeah, I mean
that might be the result here.
It was just so weird. He was under the way past his bench, and then you see him fall with a towel on, and it's just like, come on, my guy, come on, Rudy.
Yeah, I think we should also mention that Donovan Mitchell was initially supposed to play in this matchup. He, went into the morning thinking he was going to play, wanted to shoot around, but then the Jazz's medical staff told him that he wasn't cleared or something along those lines. Utah's players felt some type of way about that in their post-game interviews. They had some comments. I'm not sure if you saw that.
I did not. I saw the initial report of him being super upset, and I understand because it's playoff Mitchell. He's a beast in the playoffs, and just to be, I mean, I hope the medical staff is well intentioned in their actions. If they saw something that really drove them to take him out, then I think I'm always for saving a player from themselves. But at some point, I really do hope that Donovan Mitchell does come back, because him in the playoffs is more than exhilarating.
Yeah, I think people were just kind of floating around. There was Gobert and Bogdanovich had comments on it. I just sent you the tweet with screenshots of their comments. And, Rudy Gobert says, "It was a big surprise, but I try to stay out of all of this. It's just going to give me a headache when you wake up from a nap and find out your superstar player isn't going to play. It throws you off a little bit." Bogdanovich would also say, "Of course we missed him, especially in the playoffs. I don't know what happened, honestly, with the medical staff and him. Told him to hold him out. You should ask him." And it was just kind of giving people the vibes of when the Spurs were fielding questions about Kawhi's injury and kind of putting it all on him about why he wasn't back. But there is kind of just stuff in the atmosphere about there's some tension in that Jazz locker room. We'll watch. I'll certainly be paying attention to the Utah bench as this series goes along to see if there is anything there. Donovan Mitchell was on the bench though. I think it's kind of something that's going to be overblown a bit because he was on the bench and he was hyped for his team and reacting and getting up for them and stuff. Just the kind of guy he is. But I would love for some chaos in that Utah Jazz locker room that could help lead to them being eliminated here.
That would be crazy that an 8 seed does beat a 1 seed. Before we do get into the inevitable series, I do want to mention something funny with the tweet you sent me. This is kind of off topic, but there's like a reporter that commented along, and the name threw me off because this guy was like asking for some further information on this. He said at Milo Romney. Dude, I thought for a quick second that Mitt Romney became an NBA reporter. Just thought that was a little bit funny, but as we get into the there's a lot to talk about. It is one game, but the Lakers played yesterday and they lost 99-90. The final score throws me a little off because the whole game it seemed like the Suns were just in control. Earlier, when Chris Paul was laying on the floor, Dolos told me he thought he flopped, and I was like, usually players don't flop and hold their collarbone. That's maybe master floppers like Marcus Smart, but it was a shoulder injury. I thought he was holding his it was somewhere by his shoulder and his collarbone, and I was like, there's not many minor collarbone injuries because it's just so much of his motion. And CP3 did have a shoulder contusion, I believe. I don't remember I think it was on his right because he was dribbling a lot with his left. He was certainly not on his game, and you would think that would help the Lakers in coming back. It did not. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton had a fantastic duo debut, and it's a lot that went wrong for the Lakers, but if you want to look at the final score and how bad the Lakers played, I think that is certainly a little motivating, you could say, but a lot has to be adjusted, and there's not enough time for how the Lakers want to adjust for that to happen.
Yeah, so, I totally agree. Looking at the final score does not really match the feel watching that game because the Lakers never really had momentum. They would get stops, but you never really felt like they were going to close the gap because the scoring for them just clearly wasn't there tonight. LeBron he ultimately finished the game with 18 points. AD did not have a great night, took a lot of mid-range jumpers and was settling. I first want to start this with totally giving some credit to Phoenix's defenses for throwing us off.
For sure.
They were physical with us and pushed AD out to the perimeter.
The rebounding
really
also.
packed the paint. Yeah, they did all the little things to make sure that they came out with a win. I think the Lakers also missed a bunch of open shots. If you look and see, KCP was like 1 of 7 from 3 because he missed a bunch of open looks. Wesley Matthews missed some open looks. Those are things that I'd expect to hopefully turn around. It is possible for the Lakers shooters to be streaky. We've seen that from them during stretches this season, but I kind of have faith that they'll figure that stuff out. another huge problem that definitely cost us this game was the terrible free throw shooting from the overall team, because we shot 61% on 28 free throw attempts, which is ridiculous because we took 16 more free throws than them.
I mean, I
They
saw it was
had
like 22-2 at some point, which is it. Don't quote me on that, but that's
yeah,
kind of ridiculous. And like you have to be good at three things in one playoff game. If you get outclassed in at least two, you have a super hard chance to win any playoff game, and that's rebounding, shooting, and defense. And all three of them, the Lakers got dominated by, and you just can't have that happen. You can't win a playoff game, especially against the Suns, who are a 2 seed. They were fighting for the number 1 seed. They have one of the top records in the NBA. This isn't a series where you can just lay back and adjust like last year against the Trailblazers, where, I mean, we've seen the Lakers love to lose game ones and come back and like win 4 straight. But spoiler alert, I don't think that's gonna happen with this series at all, because Phoenix is just they're just not what the Lakers want in terms of having an adjustment round, I guess.
yeah. I think there are reasons to be optimistic about this game still,
For sure.
despite how ugly it was. Also, I think it's time for me to go on my Drummond rant here, because I've seen a lot of discussion about Andre Drummond in this series, and it's certainly been weird that he is such a lightning rod in this series for a guy who played less than 20 minutes. He was at 19 minutes. I don't think he was completely awful. He was 5 of 7 from the field. He was a -4. Not that single game plus minus is everything, but he was a -4 in a game that we lost by 9. He was okay-ish defensively. Just looking back at the tape, like he handled his role playing up high on screens, things like that. So I think the hate at Andre Drummond is completely misdirected. What people need to be annoyed by isn't his defense. He's passable on that end, especially when he gets help from the defensive scheme, when he gets help from having LeBron on the floor with him, when he gets help from having Anthony Davis as a rim protector. All of those things make us, okay, serviceable, passable, or even good when he is on the floor defensively. Our issue when Andre Drummond is on the floor is that he clogs the paint, and he is part of the reason that Anthony Davis is settling for these mid-range looks. With Drummond around the dunker spot and just like parked in the lane, his defender is obviously going to be helping off of him and going towards Anthony Davis, making it less likely for him to want to post up, and making it more likely that he'll settle for a mid-range jumper or one of those face-up kind of jab step hooks or fadeaways, something along those lines. But I think people need to understand that like Drummond's okay. Like I think he can play in this series. Rusty Buckets had a video previewing this series where he said that Drummond would just be completely unplayable in the series, and I don't know where that sentiment is coming from. I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, I'm the Drummond defender. Like part of it is just
you're most
hey,
definitely not. If anyone is a Drummond defender, that's me.
Yeah, part of it is just like, okay, the guy's on our team now. I'm gonna do some.
I want to see him succeed. That's all.
To support him. Yeah,
I just want to see him succeed.
That's what it comes down to. I'd like to see him placed in a role that optimizes his skill set. In our the last game that we played against Phoenix in the regular season, Andre Drummond had a good game. We talked about that in the first pod. Like he had 19 points, got a bunch of rebounds, and was able to play off of Anthony Davis, really forcing the issue. If Anthony Davis is aggressive in forcing the issue, Andre Drummond can clean up and at least make the offense passable during those stretches. What we can't do is miss a bunch of our open threes, miss a bunch of our free throw opportunities, and let Phoenix out rebound us when we play so much bigger than them. Those were, I think, the more key issues rather than anything that's strictly to do with Andre Drummond. I think he could have played less minutes. I think Marc Gasol definitely should get more minutes, and we talked about it before the pod a little bit that we both kind of agree Marc Gasol should
Yeah,
start in the
he should not
series.
be getting DNPs.
Yeah, he pulls Ayton out from the paint shooting threes. I'd like to see Gasol
Wait, can you say
really
what you said? Please say that again. He what to Aiton?
he will pull DeAndre Ayton out of the
Thank
paint.
you. And what is that? Hold on. I'm gonna join you because I before this I did not plan to. That was a trigger word. He pulls Aiton out, and okay, you're gonna connect the dots here for me, okay?
Okay, and without their rim protector in the game, we have driving lanes.
And who is really good at driving? One of the best drivers of all time.
Exactly.
LeBron Raymond James.
Because he had a pretty good first half. He was aggressive enough. He ended the half with around 10ish points. He was getting assists and was forcing the issue when he needed to. He still then finished the game with 18 points, 10 assists, 3 steals. 5 turnovers. He was sloppy with the ball, but
on defense, this happens with every series, and it's except for the finals, because finals LeBron is way different, but he feels it out. He's always feeling it out, and you can see on defense, there was one play where it was a kick out from under the basket to Mikal Bridges, and he did the like when you're playing at the Y where they do the little wave off where like you can go ahead and shoot it, just wave it off.
Yeah.
He did that, and I'm not gonna doubt LeBron when it comes to the playoffs, but it was so obvious that it was a feel out game, and yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about the whole LeBron thing.
Yeah, I think he was in my opinion trying to take the absolute least effort to win this game as possible. Like he just wanted to take the path of least resistance toward this win, and when he's LeBron, that can still result in an incredible stat line, but he could have had more impact on this game if he chose to. And that's the issue. Like the ball needs to be in his hand more. We need to be letting him play make more. We need to be getting him in the post more and force the issue, because that's what's going to force Phoenix to help and rotate. And that's where we're getting those dump off passes to Andre Drummond around the rim, or Trez, or kicking out to shooters and giving them wide open looks that they will hopefully cash in on. That is what this team is going to need moving forward. And he didn't bring that, especially in the second half, because he finishes the first half with like 10ish points, ends the game with 18 points. We need more than that, especially on a night where Anthony Davis is so completely off of his game.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely worst game. Like, and again, I think LeBron was trying to do the absolute
he did a lot more
least to get us by.
He played more mental than physical, for sure.
Yeah, he finished the game still a positive. I think him and Trez, I'm looking at the box score now, are like the only positives, and THT and Caruso who are like positive ones.
Caruso is the consistent guy. I don't recall him having a bad game doesn't show up because he does all the little intangibles.
Yeah, like I think the focus should all really be on Anthony Davis. I don't think LeBron had a great game.
If Anthony Davis doesn't play good, at least 80%, we're not winning this series. I'm sorry, it's not gonna happen.
So I'm not as concerned about Phoenix as you, and I kind of had this whole script of stats and stuff that I was looking at of why I was so relaxed coming into it. And I plan on calming you down about the series and why I think we're going to win in like 5 or 6.
I'm not freaking out. It
then we go ahead and lose this game. But I'm just going to put these stats out there for Lakers fans.
I can represent Lakers fans that are freaking out a little bit. I'll be the representative of such crowd.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm gonna certainly take up for all of the Laker fans that are way too overconfident and full of themselves.
Yeah.
And I will be our avatar and representative here on this.
We'll find a middle ground, I guess.
Phoenix was a top 5 offense this season. They were a top 10 defense, ranked 9th. They were top 3. They were 3rd in net rating. Those are all good indicators of what a title contender is. You look at those stats and like, okay, this team is legit. But I'd like to point out, in a year where all of the teams that you'd consider contenders preseason had to deal with a lot of injury and COVID protocol concerns. There was the Lakers, who have had Anthony Davis and LeBron missing for large stretches. There are the Clippers, who have had their guys in and out of lineups pretty much all season. The Mavericks have had a difficult time getting things together, just so on and so forth. The Suns, however, except for Torrey Craig, who was an in-season acquisition. So if you're looking at the top 10 players minus Torrey Craig, so top 9 for Phoenix in minutes per game, they played at least 45 games in a 72-game season. And in fact, that number is kind of lowered by, I think, like Frank Kaminsky, who played 49. A lot of their guys played huge minutes this season. So I think the average games played for that top 9 is 61 in a 72-game season. So they were incredibly healthy, and for a deep team, I think that really got them through. And on top of being well coached, like, that is the key factors that make Phoenix a really good team. But I think the difference in talent for a playoff matchup is what's going to take us past them. Because despite them being in a top 10 defense, post the All-Star break, their defense ranks 21st.
It fell off.
Yeah, they fell off hard. So if we can force the issue against them, if we get LeBron James and Anthony Davis being aggressive, we get to pull out those habits that made them the 21st ranked defense and not the number 9. I think if our defense falls off at all in this series, we go from the first ranked defense to maybe the 7th, 8th. We can always keep a high level of intensity.
They scored 99 points. 99
points. Scored 99 points. That's very beatable.
It is.
I think
on an off night. That's still crazy to me, because in the playoffs, like I said, one of the 3 things, defense, and it seems like even if the Lakers were to not try, like, let's say they intentionally wanted to be bad at defense, they'd still allow 100 points. That's such a low bar to at least get over.
Yeah. Like, as bad as our offense is, we should be able to break 100 points. Like, that's problematic. And I think just as far as a 7-game series, they have to beat us 4 times. I have a lot more confidence in our ability to get 4 wins because we have a lot more things that we can do to counter.
For sure.
When I look at this matchup, I think, okay, they beat us. They out-rebounded us. They shot better from 3, shot better from the free throw line. We have lineup things that we can do to change. Marc Gasol did not play at all. He is a huge player that could change kind of the course of this series. We have those adjustments to make still. I don't know what adjustments Phoenix has to make. If their base defense doesn't work, like, they just play really good team defense. They'll help a lot. They'll crash inside the paint. If those open shots start to look and we have them reconsidering coming in the paint, like, we can take advantage of them. We can make them that 21st ranked defense, and that's when we really pick them apart. But we also have to, be at the top of our game in execution. As good of a defensive game as we had, holding them to 99 points, we could have been even better. We were really relaxed, especially in that first quarter. We gave up way too many fast break points. They had 10 fast break points in the first quarter to our 0. So, like, they finished with 32 points in that first quarter. If we clamp up and clean up those fast break points, just get back in transition, like, we start that game a lot better, and that gives us at least some momentum to carry us.
Yeah, and I understand for sure there's such a higher ceiling for the Lakers to just adapt than the Suns. Mm-hmm. I think the first game is pretty close to the ceiling of the Suns. And
yeah,
I mean, I guess, yes. You're definitely lowering my anxiety levels, I guess.
Yeah, another thing I was really considering is the fact that Phoenix ranked 26th in pace, so they like to play really slow. They play a half-court game. We don't really thrive in a half-court game, which is why we were 16th in pace. But we're able to speed things up a lot. We can get up and down the court and force them into that game with us. But we also have the ability to morph into a team that is a bit slower and play a half court game of LeBron post ups. I like those post ups a lot better than Anthony Davis post ups, mostly because he settles for fadeaways when he does post up. But
Yeah.
LeBron can pick them. LeBron can pick them apart with the passing game, as well as choosing to drive and punish them at the rim, get free throws. If DeAndre Ayton gets in foul trouble at any point in this series, like their defense goes from like good and passable to not good and like really bad when Saric and those other guys
Saric at
come
5.
in. Like,
Think about it. Saric
yeah.
at 5, and this guy, AD, he's doing fadeaways. And I was just thinking what you were talking about, the transition game. Anthony Davis at 5. Imagine this. In the transition game against DeAndre Ayton. That's barbecue chicken all day.
And even Trez was eating against those small lineups. He had 12 points in 14 minutes.
Yeah, it's just what I'm trying to say is make Ayton, it shouldn't be hard. Just make Ayton feel super uncomfortable. He's not familiar with the playoffs, and he's probably super high right now on what it feels like to be in the playoffs. Show him what the playoffs are about. AD, play the 5, back him up, because he can play the mid-range. He's probably one of the best mid-range shooters out of any position, but you got to get some wear and tear into Ayton, and I think that's just like make Ayton feel uncomfortable is what I'm trying to say.
We need to be attacking DeAndre Ayton in space, put him in pick and roll, put him in multiple actions, make him navigate stuff mentally, make him process a whole lot of things, and force him to make mistakes and force him to foul. I think, before I'm going to say this, I'm going to preface this with saying, I hope Chris Paul is okay. He had the shoulder thing, and I do hope he's 100%. But we need to be attacking him and going at him.
Yes.
The same way that LeBron James was putting Steph in pick and roll in like finals matchups to get him in isolation and pick on him. We need to be doing that to Chris Paul, going at him, putting him in multiple screens. Schroeder, Caruso, all of that, defending him, the full floor of the court as well. Really make him work for it. Force their offense to be as much Devin Booker hero ball as possible. And Devin Booker's really good. He'll hit some of those shots. He'll hit contested shots. But they can't win 4 games in a 7-game series against us playing that way.
Yeah, I think there's always, with any player, even as good as Devin Booker is, there's always a limit to how many crazy shots in a game. Unless we're talking about Curry, there's certainly a limit to it. Like Booker, if he hits 5 fadeaway, behind the back, 360, backflip, whatever type of shots, if he does that 5 in a row, then you most certainly can live with that. It's just, I just don't think he's capable of doing that.
Send the doubles, all of that. If he's going to continue to make shots over a contested hand, like you live with the results.
It's just great offense over great defense, and you don't want to see him shoot wide open threes because Montrez is freezing on a pick and roll and goes under all the way to Antarctica and back and doesn't make it in time, and Booker has a wide open 3. And I will say it certainly is cool to see Booker. I love his form and I love his shooting and I love CP3. I'm a big fan of the Suns, but for the next week I am gonna put all those emotions aside, and even their jerseys are good, and even like everything about them is cool, but for now it's just, you got to look at it at an objective point, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a huge fan of a lot of their players. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, love those guys. But I think this actually could be a pretty good warm-up series for us. Like I told you in chat, this gave me a whole lot of Portland Game 1 vibes from last year.
I think they're way better than Portland, though. I will say
I'll give you that. I will certainly give you that, but I think we still have the same potential to do a bit of a feel-out game, 1 against them, and then win the next 4 of the series. Maybe give up 1 or 2 more games, but I think we could be out of this series in 5 or 6, to be honest, still.
Yeah, I do want to say also, I forgot to mention that for the Blazers, they were coming off of playing where he was like averaging 48 per game. So maybe in game 1 the Blazers were better, and I certainly see where you're coming from with the Blazers comparison. I understand 100% because I mean, who could stop Dame? Even in game one, you had that. Oh man, that meme where he was talking to the camera. It happened with every game one. I don't know what this game's was, but they were all cursed, and he shot from like the logo a bunch of times, and it seemed like all the hype was on. It was just super reverse. It was like Goliath getting beat again. I do see. I think that's just a wonderful comparison. It does put a lot of things into perspective,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, and just from like a visual like watching perspective, around the time of that playoff series against Portland, there was some stat that I heard on a podcast about our shooting in that game, where ESPN or one of these companies has some advanced stat that tracks how well you shot compared to your usual percentages to kind of just adjust for luck. And the Lakers had like an all-time worst percentage for shot luck in that first game of just missing really good open looks that we usually make. And I don't think this game was that bad to that degree, but I just think when you lose a game by 9 points and you had that many good looks that you missed, that many free throw attempts that you missed, and got out rebounded by a smaller team, I don't know that the problems will show up in every single matchup over a series.
Yeah, and if you want, we can transition into a little sneaky preview, I guess, or we could just preview completely the game two. I don't want to say I don't think Chris Paul is confirmed either way. He went back to the locker room. Did he come back after the second time? He did, right?
I think he did come back, yeah,
Yeah.
because he was in and out.
He was back and forth, and a shoulder contusion is not going to go away at all. So he's going to be playing injured, and you saw it, like we said earlier, he was dribbling with his left. He lost control, and that's the opposite of what Chris Paul does. So it's kind of weird to say, but that plays an advantage for the Lakers, and you have to take advantage of that disadvantage of them. So for game two, I mean, a lot happened in game one, which is out of a 7-game series, a lot happened. But for game two, there's no projected starting lineups. But to ask quickly, what would your ideal starting lineup for game two be in a response to game one, I guess?
Yeah, well, in an ideal world, I think, yeah, I already hinted at this in the first pod that we did, that I would like to make some changes to the starting lineup. One, Alex Caruso as our starting guard instead. I just think that will get us a bit more of a mature shot pass decision at the point guard position, where Dennis Schroeder is a bit more, drive to the hole and, get his looks. Alex Caruso is more set other guys up and drive and kick and move the chain along. I think that helps a lot more along our starters than Dennis Schroeder scoring. Then at the 2, KCP, he's still a really good lock and trail defender. He's good running around screens. He has size that I think will help us defend Booker. And then at the 3,
oh, did you see the dream
thinking,
shake? Dream shake Booker put on not more, kind of a dream shake, semi dream shake on KCP.
Oh yeah, Booker was fantastic in his playoff debut. He was always going to be this kind of player. It was ridiculous that people would make the claims that they did about him and empty calories, and his scoring was always going to translate to the playoffs, in my opinion. So I'm glad he's getting his chance to shut haters up. I just wish it wasn't against the Lakers, and we're going to have to kind of shut that fountain off.
And LeBron even guarded him at one point, which is kind of crazy to see. But anyways, continue. My bad.
Yeah, along the starting lineups, then at the 3, probably, LeBron James at the 3. I was considering Wesley Matthews, but if Drummond will be coming off the bench, we need shooting coming off the bench still as well. And then AD at the 4 still. I don't really have a problem with him not playing at the 5 for the entirety of this matchup if we can get Marc Gasol at the 5 to space the floor. So he would round out my starting lineup.
All right, I'm a little conflicted with mine, mainly because I would love to see Caruso and KCP on the court at the same time. I will say the main focal point of this starting lineup is AD at the center, AD at the center, A and D at the center because it's right in front of our face on how good it is. But AD at the center, I am conflicted with Morris at the 4. I just love Morris
Oh man,
starting, but he has not played in who knows how long. So
because he has not made a three in who knows how long.
yeah, and that's what I love his form and all of that, but I certainly don't love his form when he's not making shots. But just for the sake of practicality, he's not going to start. So I would put LeBron at 4 because Jay Crowder plays the 4 for them, and I mean even then LeBron has some size on him. Although Jay Crowder is a great playoff, it seems like him and LeBron are always matched up. But at small forward, I would have KCP and shooting guard Caruso, Dennis Schroeder at the 1. I think Caruso, Wes, you could switch those two out, but I think Caruso just to start up because you want to get all the hustle in super quick because momentum is super important for the Lakers, and I think with that starting lineup, that's pretty much as good at spacing as you're gonna get out of any lineup, unless you want to put Caruso and Wes if you really want to go for spacing. But I think the importance, like I said, is starting off good because they did not start off good against the Suns. They did not start off good against the Warriors. And you don't want to get stuck in a cycle of coming back over and over and over and over because it just gets it's so unnecessary. It's just flat out unnecessary. But yeah, I mean that's my starting 5. And I mean if we had to say 2 things separately that you think are going to that there are 2 adjustments that you think if played out correctly would allow the Lakers to take one in Phoenix, what do you think those 2 are for you?
So the more that I think about it, the more Alex Caruso on the starting lineup just makes a ton of sense. As I've already stated, he's going to be more of a ball mover than Schroeder, but I also think that just he's one of our best defensive guards. It makes sense to have him in that matchup against Booker, in that matchup against Chris Paul, making any actions involving either or both of those players a lot more switchable if we need to. And that is extremely helpful because, like, why are we saving him off the bench? Like, who is their guard off the bench that we're really worried about? Like, okay, Campaign's good, but, like, I'm fine with Dennis Schroeder guarding Cam. Like, he has a height advantage there, but, we'll put Schroeder on bigger players anyway. We might as well start with Caruso, who I think is a better defender guarding Booker and Paul.
Yeah, I do love Caruso, and I hope Vogel matches that love.
Yeah, I have conflicting feelings about Vogel. He's a really good coach, but
good
at the
at
same
defense.
time,
His defensive mindset is upper echelon. But on offense,
I'd like
that's
to
a whole
see
different
someone
story.
else take ownership of the team's offense. But
Yeah, for sure.
the other change that I think would be really important that we make, I think I'd like to see us double on Booker a bit more and really make a concerted effort to more, like even more. Like we need to get aggressive in our coverage.
And slack off
against
of who?
him.
CP3 just because he's injured?
Oh no, not CP3, but against Mikal Bridges, against Jay Crowder. And I'm not saying give them open looks. Try and run them off the 3-point line at the very least. Force them to get into the mid range, and that's when we're just gonna have guys try to run and help. That Marc Gasol is a really good defensive player with this. And if he's slow footed and he gets blown past a lot, but he'll at least position his body in a way that you're going to blow past in a direction we want you to go. We're going to funnel you towards the rim where then we have help waiting. Yeah, exactly. Anthony Davis has a superhuman ability to recover and contest shots, and that's just kind of have to be the focal point of our defensive attack. We'll help aggressively, and Anthony Davis, it's your job to help wherever you can and erase mistakes.
I mean, I guess you're completely right. My 2 would mostly be I mean, the Caruso one you kind of stole from me, but I think Schroeder. Well, I'll state the obvious. AD just just has to play better, and it's a low bar from game one, but AD has to play better, and just him playing like somewhat like AD just makes things trickle down and just be so much more easier. I think, yeah, for number one, it's kind of lame, but it's super obvious. Someone had to say it. My number two though would be, man, where do I even start? No, I'm just kidding. But I think I've already said the 8-1, so I don't want to repeat myself, but just make the team frustrated. I guess I'll expand my 8 take to the rest of the team. Make them frustrated, and I think with the defense that we have, I think that's most certainly viable. And yeah, I mean it's simple 2 takes for mine, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the first one is obvious as it is. It's still well said because Anthony Davis was really that bad. I mean, again, I have the box score here in front of me, and he was 5 of 16. That's 31%.
Not great. Not ideal.
He averages 17 field goal attempts, so he's close to his average of field goal attempts. He averages 50% field goal percentage, though. So the fact that he was at 31 this game is well below that mark. If he plays, like 10% more like him, 10, 15, 20% more like himself, this game could be a win. There are easy things in the lineup that we can do to change. There are easy things going through the film. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but at least easy to identify changes that we can make that put us in better position to get the W. So I'm confident in our coaching staff. I think they'll really be poised to get that done. And just another advantage that we have over this Phoenix team is our versatility, because I'm looking through the tape. I did a rewatch, and I see counters we can make. For Phoenix, I don't know what the counters they can make are, except help more aggressively and maybe play zone. There's not a lot on the table for them, in my opinion. So, looking forward to this game too.
Before we do end the segment and get into the game kind of part, but I just have a quick question. Is their second biggest player Jalen Smith outside of Ayton?
It might be. Frank Kaminsky's 6'9", 6'10".
Yeah. I forgot about big boy Kaminsky.
Yeah.
He didn't play that much at all. Did he even play at all?
He didn't play at all. I think that was a wise decision not to play him. Putting him in space probably would have been disastrous for Phoenix as well. And I definitely don't think they want to give that matchup to Anthony Davis.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking at the roster. Jalen Smith he's 6'10", and Frank Kaminsky is 7 foot. So, like, the thing that stands out is Lakers, super tall, super big. Suns, not so much. So, it's right there. Just take advantage of it. But things are easier said.
Can't let them out-rebound you.
Yeah, most definitely not. You can't look. You cannot allow Ayton to look like an all-time legend, and yeah, that should be fine. But I do want to play a little game in which you will give me your picks for the next for the rest of the playoffs until the Lakers game, or until game 3, because there's some. Just every other game too is what I'm trying to say. And you don't have to do any full analysis. I just want you to strictly say one name that is going to be the reason why that outcome happened, okay?
Okay. All right, I feel that. So
Heat in the Bucks. Heat in the Bucks.
Heat Bucks series.
Tell me the winner and the name.
Okay. Winner of this game is going to be the Heat, and the reason is going to be Bam Adebayo.
Okay, I can see that. He also, him like AD, has to rebound for sure, metaphorically and literally. So the Trailblazers and the Nuggets are the next game. Who do you have in that?
I'm gonna go with the Nuggets, and the reason is going to be Nikola Jokic, as it has been all year.
I mean, it was an easy pick, I guess, for you. I mean, Jokic is he is the MVP. So the Celtics and the Nets. Who do you? We probably know who you're picking to win, but who do you? The player should be the interesting part here.
I have the Nets, and the player is going to be Kyrie. It could have been any of them, but I think they're gonna kind of have to give Kyrie the. Not really trying to do analysis here. Just gonna say Kyrie.
Okay. Because simple is awesome. So we didn't give. We're not much of a pick type of thing, but Lakers and Suns prediction, I guess, not to jinx anything.
Lakers take one of these away games. The reason is going to be Anthony Davis. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Mavericks and Clippers.
Going with the Clippers. The reason will be Paul George.
Ooh, that's a hot take. That's a hot take for sure. I like it though. Wizards and 76ers is the 6:00 game tomorrow or Wednesday.
We skipped that one. I'm gonna go with the Sixers. The reason will be Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and just to say something, Alex Len and Rolo looked decently against Embiid, but that's probably as good as it's gonna get for those big guys. The Hawks and the
Most
Knicks,
likely.
part 2.
The Knicks take that one, and the reason will be RJ Barrett.
Okay. Grizzlies and Jazz for the last game at 9:00 Wednesday.
This one's hard because who knows if Donovan Mitchell plays.
I don't even think if he plays, he'd be the player, but I digress.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Utah in this one. Unfortunately, as much as I want to pick Memphis, and the reason why they'll win will be Bogdanovich.
Yeah, he's super underrated.
They have Bojan Bogdanovich, I should say.
Yeah, Bojan is super underrated in the playoffs. I think he's one of those players that just plays up, and
Yeah.
those are some of the most valuable players to have on your team. That does it for the playoff selections. Our last segment will be something that we will do. We don't know if it's going to be every episode. It might just be every other episode. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It is a Lakers survey, or not survey, kind of trivia type of quiz. Something that you can try to think of. It's something that it's going to be difficult. I'll say that. I did make this purposely super difficult, but it is fun, and you know it brings out some tangents where you're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool, and it's just some Lakers history, I guess. And we might do this after the playoffs, into the off season, some type of thing, just as like a finale type of segment, and you know it should be fun. So my first question for you is, in 2010, when the Lakers got their second championship, who was the leader in playoff 3-point percentage?
Can I look at the lineups? Or is that cheating? Who they?
Oh no, you can look at the lineups. Just look at because I want you to at least try to get a name there.
Okay, because otherwise I would have no chance. So, okay, repeat the question one more time for me.
In 2010, when the Lakers got their second ring in 2 years, aka a back-to-back championship, who was the leader in playoff 3-point percentage throughout the playoffs in 2010?
Okay, so I'm on the Basketball Reference page for this roster. I'm not going to scroll down any farther than the team, and I'm going to assume that it was Derek Fisher.
It was not. Shooting at 43.8% was Josh Powell.
Oh, wow. Well, that one caught me by surprise. I definitely thought it would be D-Fish.
D-Fish is... I was looking at the playoff, like how many playoffs a Laker has scored, like in career-wise. I believe he is top 10. He might be 11, but he's somewhere in that range at the 9, 10, 11 spot, maybe even 8. And yeah, he's beyond underrated for Lakers history, among many legends. My second question for you is, In 1984, this is my player propaganda one that I need to put. And in 1984 to 1985, who had the most 3-pointers attempted throughout the playoffs? And you can most certainly look at the lineups for that one.
Okay, so 84 to 85, and because this is the Lakers podcast, I'm gonna guess this was a Lakers player.
Yes, yeah, I should specify. Yeah, it was a Lakers player. All of these are Lakers questions.
Okay. Is it Michael Cooper?
It is.
Okay, there we go. Michael Cooper, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on this one. More Michael Cooper propaganda.
For sure.
He's a great guard.
And like a few free shout outs that I'll give him. His podcast is hilarious. He's a hilarious guy to listen to. I'm just putting you guys on because some of his takes are certainly entertaining. And for the last question, there's no way you're going to get this at all. Like even if you get half of it right, I'd be amazed. But in and I don't think you can even look at anything like the roster. Even if you look at the roster, it would not help. In 1950 to 1951, so this is about 70 years ago, if my quick maths are right, there was a team called the Minneapolis Lakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they played a team. I won't say the team, or I'll say the team. I'll say the Fort Wayne Pistons. This is it was specifically November 22nd, 1950. I don't know why the playoffs were on the first half. I have no idea how the playoffs work, but this was the lowest scoring playoff game in Lakers history. Attempt for me what the final score was.
Okay. Lowest scoring game in Lakers history.
And this is 1950, so it's a lot of mental like ladders and all of that.
Okay. So I am looking at the roster, even though that will do no help. And surprisingly, I don't really know how to gauge this team's offensive rating here. They have an 86.4 offensive rating. It was fifth in the league, in a league of 11. So kind of middle of the pack, technically good.
I'm telling you, that is not going to help you at all.
Okay, all right. I'm beating around the bush, but I guess my answer for this game will be that both teams ended somewhere in the 50s. So maybe 52 to 57.
No, not even close. I'll try to guess again. I'll let you guess again because you're not going to get it right.
Okay. I mean, not even close. All right, that makes me feel like it can't be much lower than in the 50s.
I'll let you guess.
Oh, God. All right, well, since I'm apparently not close, I'm going to go much lower and say this game ended in the 30s, like 35 to 42.
not even close still. Third time's a charm.
Oh, wow.
Third time's a charm.
Okay, all right. I'm afraid to go much lower because there's no way this is actual basketball if I go lower than this.
It's just cardio at that point.
Yeah, so if I'm getting a third guess and I'm told both of those were not close, I'm guessing this game ended in the 20s. So 25 to 28.
Still not close. Well, you're a little close. It was 19 to 18.
Oh, God.
Like, not even for a first quarter. Just overall, it was 19 to 18. The Lakers, yeah, did they win? Yeah, they did win. Neither team deserved to win, for sure.
Mm-hmm. At all.
It was 17 to 14 after 3 periods. Oh, man. Yeah, the Pistons did win. Larry Faust. Bet you never heard that name. He did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm not lying. It literally happened.
Thank God for the existence of the shot clock.
Yes.
Because clearly that's what fixed things in the NBA.
This is like a 5-minute score in this NBA.
I guess this is why the old heads don't like how much scoring there is in the league. They want their games ended at a good old fashioned 19-20 score.
1918, yeah, that's the good old days of basketball where you weren't allowed to do crossovers, and like I said, it was more cardio than basketball. But that does it for episode 2, because 1.5 was the emergency. There will be just an announcement. I will be on vacay for a little bit. We'll see. We'll try to work the audio and all of that out, but I think after the game, we'll see how that goes, but be on the lookout for that for sure. And if you did make it this far, certainly do leave 5 stars on whatever platform you are, or tell us how cool we are. That'll make you cool, share some love here and there. And we do have a Twitter page. I probably should know that. I think it's just called Strive Legacy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly double check that.
It is.
While
we probably should know this, but it is not Strive for
Legacy Strive.
Yeah, it is Legacy Strive. The other one was a sniping clan. So we do have that. It is at Legacy Strive. I don't know how we're gonna go about that, but we'll have some posts soon enough. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, comment what player on the roster you think could have the biggest shock and just come out and kind of break out, I guess. And with that being said, thank you for listening and have an awesome day.
Facts.